What happens when, when a journey just loses its map? When that clear path you thought you were on, it just vanishes and suddenly the only direction is just the flow, right? The current.
Yeah, exactly. It's those quiet moments, aren't they? Often kind of unsettling. The ones just before huge decisions have to be made.
Right, where the stillness itself just seems to make the tension louder.
Precisely. That feeling of being pushed forward, maybe not entirely by your own choice, but just by the sheer momentum of everything, of the quest itself. It's a big thing in life and, well, definitely in stories like this one.
And that's exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive. This is the show where we take these incredible stories and really unpack all those hidden gems, the cool facts, and the deeper meanings for you. So today we're embarking on a deep dive into Chapter 21 of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring. It's called The Great River.
Yeah, and it's a chapter that, people sometimes see as maybe one of the quieter bits, like just a transition after all the high drama of Moria and then the enchantment of Lothlórien.
A breather.
Kind of, but as we're going to explore, it is absolutely packed, full of critical meaning, really deep symbolism, and that kind of slow burn tension that Tolkien just, well, he masters it like nobody else.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then, we want to unpack how Tolkien uses this time, this period of what we're calling slow suspense on the Anduin, that's the great river of Middle-earth, to layer in these really crucial ideas about direction, about doubt, and the intense pressure, right? The pressure of this quest that just has no easy end in sight.
Absolutely. What looks like just drifting downstream is actually, it's a powerful reflection of everything the Fellowship is dealing with, inside and out.
Yeah, it's a journey that's like full of undercurrents. You've got hidden watchers, this ominous pull towards choices they are definitely not ready to make.
Not at all.
So we're going to pull out those key nuggets, the things that make this seemingly calm chapter just so important. So yeah, grab your paddle, I guess, and let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start right where they leave Lothlórien. That departure, it's described as bittersweet, isn't it? They're leaving this place of timeless safety, this golden beauty, and stepping back into a world that feels instantly colder, harsher. What's that transition really mean for them, physically and emotionally?
Oh, it's huge. A massive shift. Physically, think about it. They've gone from being basically hidden, sheltered in the golden wood, where even time felt different, almost dreamlike, to being totally exposed, out on the wide open river. There's no forest cover, no secret paths anymore. They're just out there, vulnerable.
Yeah.
And emotionally, Lothlórien was this incredible sanctuary, a place they could actually heal a bit, catch their breath after the absolute trauma of Moria, and of course the devastating loss of Gandalf.
Still so raw.
Exactly. So leaving, it feels like ripping a bandage off a wound too soon. That grief for Gandalf, that huge hole in their group and their leadership, it's still hanging over them, almost like a physical weight. You feel it in Tolkien's writing, this unspoken sadness that just colors everything.
And that grief, that burden, it really shows up differently in each of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When we look at the characters, they're all grappling individually. Frodo, for example, he's described as more burdened than ever. We always talk about the ring's physical weight, but what's that really saying about his state right here?
Yeah, for Frodo, it's way beyond just the physical thing. It's the mental weight, the spiritual weight of the ring. I mean, every paddle stroke is taking them closer to Mordor, deeper into the ring's, its influence. Right. He's really starting to feel the sheer scale of what he has to do. And the ring's whispers, they're not spelled out in this chapter, but they're there. This constant background noise in his head. He feels this massive, almost suffocating responsibility. It's not just carrying an object, it's carrying the fate of everything. And that leads to this deep sense of isolation for him, even though he's surrounded by his friends. It's a pressure none of the others can truly get.
Then you've got Aragorn. We see him as this figure of quiet strength, the noble ranger who always seems to know what to do. But here the book points out his sting of uncertainty. How does that kind of square with how we usually see him? What's it tell us about his very human side, dealing with leadership?
This is such a key moment for Aragorn, actually. A real turning point in his journey towards being king. Up until Moria, Gandalf was the leader, right? The planner, the wise one.
No.
It's now suddenly all that weight. It's dropped right onto Aragorn's shoulders. And his nobility, his courage, that's all still there, absolutely. But it's shown alongside this really profound, really relatable human struggle. He doesn't have all the answers. The path ahead is murky, it's dangerous, full of these agonizing choices. And he feels the pressure. to guide this incredibly important quest without his main mentor. His uncertainty isn't weakness, though. It shows how thoughtful he is, how much he understands the gravity of it all. It makes him so much more human, I think. Imagine being thrown into that kind of role with the whole world at stake and no clear instructions.
Totally. And then there's Boromir. His restlessness begins to grow. Now, we know where things tragically end up for him, but how does Tolkien start showing that here? So subtly. In these quiet river moments. What are the clues?
Tolkien is just the master of the slow build, isn't he? And Boromir is maybe the prime example here. His restlessness, it isn't just being bored on the boat. It's this deep, gnawing worry about Gondor, about his home, which they're getting closer to.
Right, his people.
Exactly. He just cannot understand why they hesitate to go to Minas Tirith. His city is in danger. From his point of view, the ring, well, it looks like the only answer. Maybe a desperate last-chance weapon to save everyone he loves. And Tolkien shows us this through Boromir's, his increasing silence, the way he's brooding, and that really unsettling detail, the way he watches Frodo.
Yeah, that's chilling.
It is. It's not a big argument, no sudden outburst yet. It's just these subtle changes, the visible inner conflict that's starting to eat away at him, this internal battle driven by love for his people. It's honestly just as suspenseful as any orc attack they might face.
It really is. And it's fascinating how the landscape, the physical world around them, seems to reflect all this internal stuff going on with the Fellowship. The book paints the chapter in shades of gray, literally and figuratively. How does that change in scenery mirror their own uncertainty?
Oh, it's totally deliberate. Tolkien weaves the setting right into their emotional state. Think about the contrast, right? They just came from Lothlórien, vibrant, golden, almost unreal, like a place outside of time.
Yeah, pure light.
And now, they enter this landscape that's getting bleaker. You read about rocky shores, watchful forests, skies getting ever darkening. It's not just a different place on the map. It's like a visual symbol of the burden they're carrying. The outside world is becoming as heavy, as shadowed, as uncertain as they feel inside.
Those watchful forests gives you a shiver.
It does. It adds to this feeling of dread, like the land itself knows something bad is coming. It marks this shift from, relative safety to increasing danger, echoing that psychological weight pressing down on all of them.
So even though they're physically moving south down the river, their actual purpose begins to feel increasingly unclear. And this leads to what the book calls the looming decision. This isn't just about turning left or right at the rapids, is it? It feels much bigger, like a fundamental crossroads.
Oh, absolutely. You can't overstate how big this decision is. Physically, yes, the river's pushing them south, but hanging over them is this huge strategic and, frankly, moral dilemma. Do they go straight for Mordor, the incredibly dangerous, almost suicidal path they need to take to destroy the ring? Or do they divert to Minas Tirith, Boromir's home, under siege, where maybe the ring could be used as a weapon against Sauron?
Which is Boromir's whole argument starting to form.
Exactly. So it's not just about navigation. It introduces this deep split right down the middle of the Fellowship. It's the first real test of their unity, their core purpose. It forces them to confront their different priorities, their deepest beliefs. The tension isn't just about which way to go, but what choosing that path actually means for the quest and for Middle-earth itself.
Wow. Okay, that emotional landscape really sets the stage for focusing on the river itself. Let's shift to the Anduin. As you said, it's way more than just scenery. It acts like a character, a symbol, a metaphor. On the basic practical level first, how does it help them? How is it a tool for stealth and getting where they need to go?
Well, practically speaking, the river is incredibly useful, almost a gift in a way. It lets them make swift progress south, covering ground much faster than walking. And at the same time, it offers a huge advantage: stealth. Moving by water, they don't leave tracks. That makes it much harder for orcs or, other spies of Sauron who might be scouting the lands to find them.
Good point.
So yeah, it's a way to bypass some of the immediate dangers of traveling overland, gives them a degree of cover they wouldn't have otherwise. Very useful for moving forward without being easily spotted.
But it's definitely not just an easy ride down the river, is it? The book immediately balances that usefulness by calling the river treacherous. What warnings did the elves give them? And how does the river's tricky nature highlight how much harder their path is getting?
Yeah, the elves were very clear, almost prophetic about it. They warned about the river's deceptive qualities, about hidden rapids, strong currents, and they basically said, look, it's only get harder the farther they go.
Hmm.
And this isn't just about, rocks and fast water. It's a symbol for the whole quest. The Anduin, just like the path to Mordor, it can look beautiful, powerful, but it's fundamentally dangerous. The calm surface can hide real threats underneath submerged rocks, whirlpools, sudden fierce currents.
Right.
It hammers home that grim reality. There are no easy ways to get to Mount Doom. Every apparent advantage, like the river's speed and stealth, comes with its own set of risks, its own dangers that need careful handling. It's a constant reminder of how unforgiving their task really is.
And that idea of the river just constantly flowing, relentlessly moving,
Yeah.
that points to its deeper symbolic meaning, too. You mentioned it symbolizes time steadily moving forward, whether the Fellowship is ready or not. That feels like a really profound connection, tying their specific journey to something universal.
Oh, it absolutely is. Time, just like a big river, it doesn't stop for anyone.
Right.
It just keeps going. The Anduin really embodies that. It's this constant physical reminder that big decisions can't be put off forever. The river is literally carrying them along, making indecision itself a kind of active, dangerous choice.
That's interesting.
Yeah. For Frodo, it means he cannot delay his choice forever. About the ring, about his own resolve. For Aragorn, he cannot linger in indecision about where they're going, about stepping up as the leader everyone needs him to be. The current demands they act. The river's flow forces them to face their struggles and make those hard choices before time, or the river makes the choices for them.
So it's not just a physical trip. It's like this metaphorical race against time being pushed into their destiny. The book says powerfully, the journey is now too large for comfort, and the current is sweeping them forward toward a breaking point. How does that vivid language connect to that feeling of being carried by fate, maybe more than choosing their own path now?
It's that feeling of losing control, isn't it? They're not just deciding where to walk anymore, carefully planning each step on solid ground. The river's current symbolizing fate, the overwhelming weight of the quest. It's actively pushing them, pulling them.
Mm-hmm.
That phrase, too large for comfort, just nails it. The mission has grown beyond what they maybe first expected, beyond their sort of innocent hopes. And the breaking point, that's not just talking about a waterfall or rapids on the river map.
Right, it's emotional too.
Exactly. It's an emotional, psychological, even spiritual breaking point for the Fellowship itself. They're being carried almost unwillingly towards this crisis, a crisis of who they are, what they're doing, and ultimately whether they can stay together. It really highlights the epic scale of what they've undertaken. The journey has outgrown them, and it's forcing them towards this unavoidable clash with their own destinies.
That ominous push, that feeling of being swept along,
Yeah.
it leads us perfectly into one of the most, chilling parts of this chapter.
Mhm.
Subtle but chilling.
Let's talk about Gollum. Enemies unseen, the quiet, chilling threat. The Fellowship starts to feel like they're being watched, tracked.
Oh, it's a masterclass in building dread. Honestly, one of Tolkien's most brilliant moves in this whole section. Gollum, in this chapter, he makes his presence known, but they never actually confront him.
Yeah, you never see him clearly.
Never. He stays this shadowy, almost ghost-like figure. It's all hints, right? A weird ripple on the water, a fleeting shadow maybe glimpsed from the corner of an eye, this growing unease among the group, the feeling that the air itself feels watched.
Creepy.
Totally. Tolkien doesn't need a big reveal or a jump scare here. It's the suggestion of Gollum. The insidious knowledge that something slippery, watchful, and obsessed is out there, just paddling behind them, just out of sight. That uncertainty is way scarier than seeing him outright, I think. It plants this seed of paranoia that just grows and grows through the chapter. And the psychological hit from just knowing Gollum is near is huge, especially for Frodo. The book says it sends shivers down Frodo's spine in hours. But it's more than just being scared of being attacked, isn't it? There's that deeper, really disturbing connection. Gollum represents the fate Frodo might share. That adds such a dark, personal dread.
Absolutely. That's the key. For Frodo, Gollum isn't just some monster chasing them. He's like a potential future, a mirror showing what could happen. Gollum is the living proof of what the ring can do to someone if they don't resist. Over centuries, he is the cautionary tale. His obsession, his twisted body and mind, his miserable, lonely life, it's all a terrifying preview for Frodo. The symbolic link just ramps up Frodo's personal struggle massively. It adds this whole internal layer to the external danger. Every time they sense Gollum, every time that unease creeps back, Frodo gets reminded of the terrible power he's carrying and the dark, twisted, lonely path he could end up on if he fails, if he gives in. It's a chilling parallel, really elevates the stakes for him personally.
And this sort of quiet introduction here, it's actually the start of this relentless threat that's going to dog Frodo for the rest of the story. The book makes it clear, from this point forward, he will never be far from the Ring-Bearer's path.
Precisely. This chapter doesn't just introduce Gollum as a monster of the week. It establishes him as this continuous underlying threat, a persistent shadow. He becomes the embodiment of the ring's corruption, always lurking, always reminding Frodo what's at stake, always symbolizing Frodo's own potential downfall.
Wow.
Yeah, his presence is like this constant whisper of temptation, a constant fear, this relentless psychological pressure cooker for Frodo. From here on, the quest isn't just get to Mordor, destroy the ring. It's also resist the darkness inside and resist the darkness outside that looks like Gollum. It's a brilliant way to weave character, destiny, and external danger together.
That external threat is chilling, but it's not the only danger brewing, is it? There's also this internal darkness, this tension inside the Fellowship, which brings us to the cracks in the unity. The book says pretty bluntly that cracks are forming, even while they're still technically together. And Boromir, he's really central to this. His mood grows darker as they pass closer to his homeland.
Yeah, Boromir's internal conflict is maybe the most heartbreaking example of how even good intentions can turn sour when desperation sets in. His mood darkens because he feels the danger to Minas Tirith so acutely, so personally. It's desperate. He struggles to understand, maybe even starts to resent, why the Fellowship would hesitate to go to Minas Tirith when his beloved city, the last real defensive men in the West, is facing total destruction. From where he stands, the ring. It doesn't just look like a burden to get rid of. It looks like a weapon, maybe the only weapon that could save his people. A last desperate hope.
And that desire, the urge to use the ring to save Gondor, it becomes increasingly urgent for him. We know, obviously, this tension explodes tragically in the next chapter, but Tolkien's genius is in the slow build here. How does he show us Boromir starting to fray, almost without us noticing at first?
It's so well done. He shows it through Boromir's silence, which gets heavier, more noticeable, through his brooding, and, like we said, that really unsettling detail, the way he watches Frodo.
Yeah.
There's no big shouting match yet, no direct confrontation. Instead, it's these subtle shifts in how he acts, his quiet withdrawal. You can almost see him wrestling inside with his duty to Gondor, his loyalty to the Fellowship, and this growing temptation from the ring. Yeah. It just shows how well Tolkien understood that internal conflict can be just as suspenseful as external threats.
Absolutely.
The tension of a relationship breaking down, of trust starting to erode from the inside. It's incredibly powerful. It creates this feeling of impending doom that's different from facing orcs, but just as strong. It's the tragedy of a good man being slowly pulled apart by impossible choices and overwhelming temptation.
And while Boromir is consumed by this, Aragorn is facing a totally different, but just as huge, burden, leadership. Without Gandalf, the book stresses, the burden of command falls on him. How exactly does he struggle with that? What does it show us about him that might be surprising?
Aragorn is now the leader, like it or not, and it's a role he wasn't fully ready for, definitely not in this kind of high-stakes situation. He's carrying this massive weight of knowing that the next big choice, the looming decision, could split the group. It could end the whole quest before they even get close to Mordor.
Yeah, the pressure is immense.
Immense. He's trying to balance Frodo's unique burden, Boromir's increasingly desperate arguments, and just the overall safety and purpose of everyone else. What's really compelling here is that, yes, he's brave, but the text also shows him as deeply human here, cautious, thoughtful, uncertain. This isn't the infallible King Aragorn of legend yet. This is a man wrestling with huge responsibility, trying to make the right call for a very diverse group with conflicting needs. And he doesn't have Gandalf's wisdom to lean on anymore. He's navigating not just a river, but this whole mess of human emotions and, frankly, politics. It makes him incredibly relatable. It shows the true weight of leadership when the path isn't clear.
That relatability, feeling his struggle, it makes his quiet moments really powerful. And that leads us right to the iconic, symbolic high point of the chapter, the Argonath, a vision of past and future destiny, often called the most memorable moment of the chapter.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. That moment when the Fellowship boats pass between those enormous statues, the Argonath, it's just breathtaking. They're described as these ancient kings of Numenorian descent standing watch over the river.
Like giant sentinels.
Exactly. They aren't just statues. They're colossal figures, worn by time, but still radiating immense power and presence. Can you imagine floating down this river and suddenly these two gigantic forms just rise up on either side, guarding the old kingdom? It's awe-inspiring, commands instant silence, instant reverence.
And the impact of seeing them, the book says, is breathtaking and powerful. It highlights the sheer scale, the silence, and importantly, the reverence Aragorn shows. What does this moment do for Aragorn himself? How does it hit his sense of who he is, his destiny?
It's like this profound, almost spiritual confirmation for him of his heritage, his true destiny. These statues are his ancestors, powerful kings from ages past, guarding the borders of their ancient realm. So for him to pass between them, it's like passing through his own history, his own bloodline. It's a moment that powerfully reminds us of his bloodline and his destiny. It's a quiet but incredibly strong affirmation for him and for us reading it of who he really is and what he's meant to become. The silence of that moment, just the sound of the water, it just amplifies the majesty and the solemn weight of that recognition. It's a visual symbol of his inheritance and the future he has to face.
And it's not just a big moment for Aragorn, it's huge for Frodo, too.
Yeah.
The book points out that Frodo looks upon Aragorn with awe for the first time, sensing the king beneath the ranger. That's a really significant change in how the ring-bearer sees him, right?
Absolutely critical shift. Up to now, Frodo, like pretty much everyone else, saw Aragorn mainly as Strider, right? The skilled ranger, the good guy, loyal friend. But seeing him there, between these ancient kings, seeing the deep respect and connection Aragorn clearly feels, it just opens Frodo's eyes. It's this moment of sudden, profound understanding. He stops seeing just a fellow traveler and starts seeing a future king, a true leader, destined for greatness. It deepens Frodo's grasp of the whole huge history of Middle-earth and how Aragorn fits into that story. And Tolkien, with his usual brilliant subtlety, he doesn't need Aragorn to make some grand speech or declare himself. Like the book says, the image says everything. The visual power of the Argonath, plus Aragorn's quiet reverence, tells us everything we need to know about who he is and where he's heading.
So it's a scene that just perfectly links the past, the present, and the future. In a story that's so steeped in myth and memory, the Argonath really drives home that core Tolkien idea that the road to the future runs directly through the past.
That is such a foundational idea in Tolkien's world building. The ancient history of Middle-earth, it's not just background fluff or old stories. It actively shapes the present. It gives the current journey its weight, its meaning.
Right.
The lineage of kings, the rise and fall of old kingdoms, the strength of the elves, the corruption of Sauron's past actions, all of that feeds directly into what's happening now. The Argonath is like a physical embodiment of that idea. A huge visual reminder that the echoes of the past directly shape the choices and fates of the present, pushing them towards a future that's deeply rooted in everything that came before. It's a powerful moment of legacy, of continuity. It stresses that today's struggles are tangled up with the wins and losses of ages ago.
Okay, as we start to wrap up this deep dive into the Great River, let's just reflect on the essence of Chapter 21 based on all this.
Yeah.
How would you sum up its fundamental character?
Well, at its heart, the Great River is really a chapter of waiting, watching, and wondering. It feels very still. Like the narrative points out, no swords clash, no oaths are broken. Superficially, there's no big action, no epic battles, no grand declarations.
It's quiet.
Very quiet. But underneath that calm surface, the powerful currents of destiny, doubt, internal conflict, they're swirling with this immense, almost tangible force.
And this is really where Tolkien's genius just shines, isn't it? His deep understanding that even in stillness there can be drama, even in drifting there is direction. It's such a masterclass in storytelling, how he builds intense suspense without any obvious action.
It really is what makes him such a master. That tension coils in every shadow and between every character. He uses psychological tension, that subtle sense of foreboding, the sheer weight of the decisions hanging over them. He uses all that to create a story that's just as gripping as any fight scene. It shows that real drama isn't just about, explosions and battles. It's about what's happening inside people, the unspoken fears, the quiet betrayals simmering, the unstoppable pressures building up between them. That slow, relentless pull forward creates this incredible anticipation, this feeling that something huge, maybe something terrible, is about to break, even while everyone seems outwardly calm. It's the quiet before the storm, absolutely loaded with consequence.
And despite how calm it seems, the chapter really sets up this unavoidable path forward. The Fellowship isn't just drifting randomly lost. They are, as the book says, floating toward choice, toward confrontation, and toward their fates.
Absolutely. This chapter, it's not just filler, not just a transition. It is the crucial setup for everything that comes next. It forces the characters to face their inner demons, it exposes the cracks starting to form in the group, and it introduces huge threats like Gollum in that perfectly chilling, subtle way.
Yeah.
It is the calm before the storm, definitely, but it's a calm that's just packed with meaning, carefully setting the stage for the dramatic breakup of the Fellowship that we know is coming right around the corner. It's about the journey itself gaining this irresistible momentum, even in its quietest phases, pushing every single character towards their own destiny, whether they feel ready for it or not.
Wow, what an incredibly rich chapter when you really dive into it. So much meaning, tension, foreshadowing, packed into what might seem like just a quiet travel sequence. We've really seen how Tolkien could load these moments of stillness with incredible depth.
Indeed. It makes you rethink what dramatic really means in a story, doesn't it? How much can be said without shouting? Maybe as you navigate your own journeys, you could think about this. How do you tell the difference between just drifting along, letting life happen, and actually moving with purpose towards a choice you know you have to make?
Hmm.
And maybe, what unseen golems, what hidden worries, what little temptations or what outside pressures might be quietly shaping your path, even when things feel calm on the surface? What unspoken stuff might be pushing you towards a future you're not quite ready for yet?
Those are definitely powerful questions to think about as we head back to our own worlds. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Great River. We really hope you've gained some new insights and maybe a fresh appreciation for the quiet power in Tolkien's incredible storytelling.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time as we continue to unpack the amazing narratives that shape how we see the world.
Me.